Hey everybody, this is Captain Kyle and I'm here with a special Transformers video. Today I'm going to be talking about the flip changers. Not the ones from Beast Wars that change into animals, but the ones from Machine Wars and beyond that change into vehicles. They're some of my favorite molds and I'm going to go over all the ones that they have out there with you. Be right back. Now, if you aren't familiar where the flip changers came from, these were unused Generation 2 molds that were canceled before, well, we got to them. Instead, Hasbro had acquired Kenner and decided to give the Transformers line to Kenner, and history was made with Beast Wars, which I love Beast Wars. However, during Beast Wars, somebody, it is rumored, at a Botcon made a very loud pronouncement, a Hasbro rep, saying that, oh, don't worry, we're gonna be very soon going back to Optimus Prime as a truck and vehicles and Starscream as a plane and all that stuff, so don't you worry. I guess he didn't realize how popular Beast Wars was. I think that Hasbro kept his promise. I don't think they kept the rep. So what ended up happening is they put out a KB exclusive line of toys called Machine Wars. It had no real backstory. It was a line of basically 12 Transformers, 6 Autobots, 6 Decepticons, and they used some European exclusive molds from the end of G1 and some unused G2 molds. And that's where we got the flip changers from. And these guys are awesome. So this is Prowl. Now Prowl and Mirage are rally car race cars. They are, well, Prowl was a police car initially, but they decided to make him into a race car, and they were so helpful to put Prowl on his spoiler. Same thing with Mirage. Mirage was his type of vehicle, though this is not the same color scheme. Obviously, it's the G1 version, but they're very cool, and you just lift up the spoiler in the back, and just like that, they are transformed. I am transformed. No, we're not going to talk about Beast Machines. Ugh. So he's transformed, and what's neat with these guys is inside the legs is storage for the two parts of their weapon. One of the problems with a lot of the G1 stuff is you would end up with a lot of pieces that you had to put to the side when you transformed your guys into vehicles, and then you'd have to keep track of them and put them back on there later. Here you could actually store the weapons in the legs of the actual guy so you don't lose them. This is something that happened with some of the G2 stuff and was apparently going to continue, and is definitely a great part of the Machine Wars line. But in addition to these two race cars that changed into robots, they came out with two towing vehicles, one of which actually says towing on the side, as if you couldn't figure it out. And these are Hoist and Hubcap. Now, Hoist was a tow truck in G1, different color scheme. This color scheme is actually more like Trailbreaker from G1 than Hoist. But of course, Trailbreaker was a truck, not a tow truck. Now these guys, if you pull off the grill, reveal their weapon here. Now some people fold the grill and put the weapon in their hand. Other people would just pull the weapon off the grill, replace the grill, and then put the weapon in the hand. But what's great about all these guys is the ease of transformation. When I was younger, way back, the dark ages, and I had Transformers, I would be like, all right, let's transform and roll out and get into battle. And it would take you about an hour and a half to transform all your Transformers into vehicle mode. Then you'd roll them across the room to the site of the battle, and then it would take you an hour and a half to transform them all back. These guys, it's like a snap. It's awesome. Now they did have the evil Decepticon versions. They had the jets. Now this one is Megatron. Machine Wars Megatron was much smaller than Machine Wars Starscream. But with a quick flip, you could have him in robot mode in a flash. In the back of the legs, just like with the Autobots, you have two pieces of a weapon. No, this Megatron didn't have a huge arm fusion cannon. So we had Megatron and we had Megaplex. Megaplex was one of the few characters that did not have a name borrowed from G1. Now Hubcap, the original Hubcap was like a small car. So how he got to be a tow truck, he might be a totally different character, or he could just have gotten an upgrade. But Megaplex was the first actual new character without repeating a name in Machine Wars, and he was a clone of Megatron. He was designed to sow confusion in the Autobot ranks. They would go after him instead of actual Megatron. But he had limitations, so he wouldn't take over. So he was basically a decoy. And you know what usually happens to decoys. So we have Megatron and Megaplex, who I don't know if that means that he can actually also transform into a cinema, or he just has some complexes. I think it's the latter. And finishing out the Machine Wars small Transformer line is Skywarp and Thundercracker. Not even close to their G1 colors. But again, with the quick snap, there you go with robot mode. So Skywarp and Thundercracker finished out the Machine Wars lines. Here we have 8 different characters, 4 different molds. But little did we know that these molds would return again and again and again. Enter Beast Wars 2, where you have Dirge and Thrust. Now at least Dirge has the same coloration kind of as his original G1 form. Thrust is a little golden, but that's okay. These are actually Predacons, though in Beast Wars 2 they're called Destrons. And later on in the show they would be reformatted into Beast-style modes and become Dirge Gun and Thrustall. I don't come up with the names. But they are very good uses of these particular molds, and as you might be able to tell, they actually used a feature that I believe was meant to be in the G2 line by having translucent plastic built into their heads so that the light coming through would make their eyes glow, which is a neat feature and great additions to the Flip Changer fleet. But these molds would come again. In the year 2000, we had Car Robots 2000, which was imported to the US a year later as Transformers Robots in Disguise. The Japanese names for these were Indy and Wrecker Hook. However, there were some differences between the US and the Japanese release of these toys. Unfortunately, this is only the US. I used to have the Japanese release. It had a lot more orange detailing and there were some minor color differences. But in the US, they were known as Skids, Skid-Z, so Skids, and Towline. No parking means no parking. And these were making use of the molds, obviously, from Machine Wars. And again, were great new characters using these existing molds. And again, like the Beast Wars 2 ones, they use the translucent parts of plastic in the back of the head that could make the eyes glow. So more Flip Changers. I'm loving it. Kind of like McDonald's, but healthier. But when they bought over Indy and Wrecker Hook as Skids and Towline to the US, they actually put them in 2 packs and put them versus Decepticons. So only in the US we had Wind Sheer and Skyfire. And yes, Skyfire obviously is the name of the good guy Autobot in the G1 cartoon, but they decided to make him a Decepticon for Robots in Disguise. So Wind Sheer and Skyfire were US only additions to the line, but both very cool. And they're Decepticons, not Predacons. But in Japan, they like these guys so much, they did some special Jusco versions. They call it Super Indy Heat and Super Wrecker Hook, using translucent plastic for these guys. These are kind of rare and expensive. Now, years ago, I had sold off part of my collection, and one of the things that went was my Jusco Indy Heat. So I did replace him, and it wasn't cheap. Unfortunately, even though the bag was sealed, there was no gun in the packaging. I was upset. The seller was distraught, but they were cool. They gave me a little bit of a discount, and then they sent me a replacement gun. It is a Prowl gun from Machine Wars, but at least he has a gun. I will keep an eye out for a replacement gun at some point, but at least he's kind of complete. And these guys are very cool in my collection. And as part of the Flip Changer army. But wait, there's even more. Because around 2004, they came out with a line called Robot Masters. This one is known as Liger. He's actually Mirage. That is the Japanese name that they gave to Mirage. And as you can see, he's got the number and he's got the coloration of G1 Mirage. And you can tell he's in Robot Masters because he actually has Robot Masters on the side. I guess when he's racing, he is advertising the toy line he's in. And so he is the second Mirage to use this mold. He also comes with an additional weapon, which is very cool. I've read that this is probably leftover weapons from a Micro Man line or a Micronaut line, Microman Japanese, Micronaut US, that was included. But he is a very cool figure. The only thing I don't like about the extra weapon is you can't store it anywhere. But a great new Autobot edition. Also in the Robot Masters line, you had Air Hunter, you had Wingstun, and you had Wrecker Hook. But this time, Wrecker Hook was a Decepticon. All three of these are Decepticons, and they have very cool color schemes. They have the nice translucent plastic on the head, so the eyes glow, great color schemes, and like Mirage, they have extra weapons that you can't store on them anywhere, but they're pretty cool. And Wrecker Hook actually has like a wrecking ball, which kind of makes sense. There would be one more use of one of these molds, and that was from the Botcon set where they made a Darksyde Waspinator. He was in a 2-pack with Darksyde Megatron, and it was supposed to be their pre-Beast Wars forms. And he looked perfect for a pre-Beast Wars Waspinator. Had it at one point, it may be somewhere. So those are the flip changers, and I think they are awesome. Now, one little bonus, I don't know if this is a bonus, you can skip this part, but this was something that I came up with because I noticed that a lot of Transformers had similar head styling to Megatron. And I did not like the idea of having this guy be actual Megatron. I'd rather G1 Megatron be Megatron and this guy be like Mega Wing. So I came up with an idea where all the Transformers who had heads that looked like Megatron were part of his cult. See, he disappeared in 2005, Galvatron emerged, but these people were like, we were followers of Megatron. So in his honor, they made their heads in the shape of his head, and they worked towards the day that he would be restored to them and kept his legacy alive. So that was my idea. Even G2 Megatron, I had him be Megatred, and of course you had the slight repaint of him in Beast Wars 2, who was Megastorm. So these guys would call themselves like, this is Megaplex, this is Mega Wing, Mega Thrust. He could be in porn. And some of them wouldn't actually advertise they were part of the cult, like this guy would be Air Hunter, but he'd be Mega Hunter when he's in his Grand Poobah meetings at the lodge with all the other Megatron fanatics. So anyway, that's an idea that I came up with. I kind of like the idea of it, and it was a way to not have multiple Megatron toys, to basically say this Megatron is just a follower of Megatron, and maybe even Beast Wars Megatron was a member at one point, just so he could find out about the golden disc. And then he decided to blasphemy, take on the name of Megatron and steal the disc and do all that stuff. So, I don't know. That's my storyline. Let me know in the comments if you think it's cool or not. Feel free to adopt it for when you're crashing your Transformers against each other, just like Mega Thrust. So there you have it, the amazing Flip Changers, my favorite group of molds that weren't even supposed to come out until they released Machine Wars to fulfill an ill-made promise, and since then have just exploded into all these guys. I hope you enjoyed this trip down Flip Changer Lane. I definitely recommend collect all of these that you can. I put some links down in the description so that you can try to find every bit of this. So I have links to eBay with the names built in so that you don't have to do all the searching. And while you're waiting to gather your army of Flip Changers, you can check out these videos over here. You can also subscribe right down there, hit that notification bell, follow us on all the social media things. We will see you next time, and as always, have fun and good hunting.